come on stream. Meanwhile, let me quickly check with Kunal. We've got the first question in, and since I didn't take this question yesterday, Anjali Sharma is asking about Vascon Engineers, which is currently trading at about 21 rupees. I know we're still waiting for the YouTube live to start, but I'm just going to get it off the ground and in fact ask you, do you have coverage on this stock, Kunal?
Yeah, Vascon Engineering, I think if I'm not wrong, it's a stock which is trading at 21 rupees, I think if I'm not wrong. It's down some 2.5% today, but it's been a stock which is more of a stable stock. It's gone through a steady recovery. The all-time high levels for the stock was way below that, at that 180, 185 mark. That was I think around 7-8 years back, 2012-13 approximately. And from there on, the stock has been on a downtrend. So it's going through a short-term recovery, but the long-term structure is not encouraging for the stock. So I would suggest that you should look out to exit the stock and get back into some blue chip quality names, and especially at a time when the markets are into a corrective phase. I think that's one of the better times to try and chip into large cap blue chip stocks. So I would advise a switch from this name to some of the large cap names, something like maybe Reliance or SBI or HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank. These are the classic names which you should be looking at current levels.
Alright, the next query is also for you, Kunal, and this one is coming in from Rajan. He is saying that he has 200 shares of IDFC First Bank, which he's purchased at 58 rupees per share. He wants to know, should he continue to accumulate more or should he hold the current positions that he has for the next 3 to 6 months?
It's attractive, IDFC First Bank. I think after almost 12 months of a straight rally from levels of sub 20 to levels of 65, 66, which it tested 2 months back, I think it's now into a corrective phase. My only concern is with the time frame, because I think if you're expecting the next 3 to 6 months the stock can see a strong upside, you could be in for a bit of a disappointment over there, because possibly after this 12 months of a strong rally, it's possible that the stock may consolidate for the next couple of months, maybe at this around 55 mark plus or minus 5-6 rupees odd could be the band for IDFC First Bank, and could consolidate at these levels. So till the time you don't see strong pickup of volumes, the stock breaking above that 65 levels yet again, I would expect the stock to consolidate. But from a longer term view, I think it's a good stock, because the stock has finally broken out of a multi-years of downtrend in this 12-13 months of rally. So long term wise, I would suggest a hold, but short term wise, my only suggestion would be to try and tweak your time frame and increase it to more longer term.
Okay, we've got a question coming in from Balan, and this one's for you, Sharmila. He's got 200 shares of Zensar Technologies bought at 205, so he's comfortably making money here, and he's got 100 shares of Wipro at levels of 510. He's asking if we should hold on to these or should he swap to another mid-cap IT name?
Zensar, in fact, is a stock I like within the mid-cap IT space, because I think, of course, as we've been saying for the last couple of years, it's going to be really the verticals that you're in which matter for mid-cap IT. And I think the way Zensar is positioned just now is really nice. Their valuations are also very reasonable, even at current price, which I think is above the price he's bought at. So for me, definitely the stock is a hold. When it comes to Wipro, I'm in fact not that enthusiastic. I would really recommend that he switch out of Wipro, and if he has to buy a stock within the top 5 or 6 IT stocks, I would recommend that he switch from Wipro to HCL Tech, because that's my preferred play in the IT space. So hold for Zensar and a switch for Wipro.
Alright, the next query is coming in from Santi on Rajesh Exports. Wants to know your views on this particular stock, recommendation for fresh buys. Kunal, how is this particular stock looking on the charts? Make sense to buy at current levels, or look at this particular counter over the next 1 to 2 months to look at fresh buys?
I remember the stock was at 450 odd levels just about 7-8 months or back, and now it's jumped up to almost 600 rupees. But it's a very staggered kind of a move for a stock like Rajesh Expo. The stock is still way above its 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average as well. So specifically in a market which is going through a corrective phase, now these are the mid-cap names which also tend to complete their mean reversion process. So I think from the next 1 or 2 months perspective, I would sense that stocks like Rajesh Export, they could probably come back and hit back their lower end of support levels. So for example, the 50-day moving average is at 520 levels and the 200 DMA is at 486 levels. So somewhere around this 500 mark plus or minus 15-20 rupees odd is where I believe that the stock corrections should stabilize. If you're looking for a classic entry point, then I believe closer to 500 levels is where you should look to enter the stock, not at current levels.
Okay, we already had a conversation at the start of the program, Sharmila, on steel stocks or rather metal stocks, but I think a few of our viewers were not privy to that. Indumati is asking about Tata Steel specifically, considering the news flow around metals. Is it a good idea to accumulate for the medium to long term?
Well, to accumulate, I would wait a bit, because I think that, given again, as we were discussing a little while earlier, the way these stocks have rallied, there is a possibility that you could see a bit more of a correction. But yes, I think within the steel space, if you were to ask me, Jindal Steel and Power and Tata Steel would be the two names that I would like, and maybe Hindalco, on the non-ferrous side. So my recommendation clearly would be that you would see, I think, from to my mind, a little bit of more of a correction from current levels. So wait for that correction and try and enter at that price.
Alright, the next query is coming in from Pawan. He's saying that he has Cadila June 650 call. He's losing 85% of his wealth in it. He bought actually this particular counter or this particular position when the news came 7 days ago of the vaccine front. Kunal, but how is it looking like? Does it make sense for Pawan to stay put in Cadila June 650 call now?
Yeah, I think I would suggest that to wait for at least a couple of days more, since you've already taken the major part of the pain for the stock and it's corrected from 665 to 605, in the last 5-6 trading sessions. So majority of the pain seems to be getting over for the stock. Indicators are coming into an oversold territory, so there is always a possibility of a bounce back into such kind of themes. And I would sense that if the bounce back materializes even for a couple of days, you could be looking at the stock coming back towards 625, 630 territory. So that's where I believe that you can probably pair your losses and then look to exit the stock. So I would suggest to hold on for at least a couple of days and wait for the stock to bounce back in the region of 625, 630.
Okay, Neeraj, I'm taking your question now, but I'm requesting you once again not to post multiple times because it becomes difficult for us to take queries. Sharmila, Neeraj is asking about Adani Ports, which he bought at levels of 655. He's asking we should hold for 2 years. Now, just a short while back, I think there was a consensus buy on this counter, and quite a few of the qualitative numbers on the fundamentals were also looking quite strong. Is that something that is giving you confidence on this stock, and would you recommend a hold for 2 years?
It's a very, very tricky question, because obviously there seems to be something more that is going on which has affected the entire Adani Group stocks as a space than pure fundamentals. In terms of fundamentals, I would honestly think that they are ahead of their the value that they should be trading at. But within that space, I think Adani Port was a reasonably sort of a priced stock, especially at current levels. In terms of valuation, it doesn't seem out of whack. But I would really wait to see where this entire news flow goes, because there is a concern, because the entire group has really all the stock prices have really zoomed, and now we are seeing some sort of selling come. So you need to allow that dust to settle before you really take a call on this. So it's a very tricky question, because I think this is something that could go either way. I think if you're making money, it might be best to just sell it and watch it a little bit from the sidelines before you decide to re-enter.
Alright, the next query that we've got is from Satish. He wants to know whether is it the right time to buy Tata Motors or Arvind or Pharma for the shorter term. Kunal, both these counters, how are they looking on the charts? Makes sense to buy for the short term?
As I said earlier, that many of these stocks are now entering into their oversold territories. Tata Motors as well, I think, has come back to an oversold territory on the indicator front around this 330 mark. So purely on that aspect, I would suggest more of a staggered buy on dips because these oversold indicators, they could probably tend to get stretched for at least a week or so. From a short-term view, I would suggest you start buying closer to that 330 mark, and then if the stock drops by say another 10 to 15 rupees lower from those levels, shorter term wise, you can look to average it out further. Post a net average cost of approximately around 320, 325. I would expect a target of approximately 345 to 350 on a stock like Tata Motors.
Hey Kunal, so we've got a few questions from our viewers on stocks that perhaps don't get recommended regularly. Perhaps you can still give a little bit of advice here. Payal is asking about KSS, which is trading at less than 1 rupee per share. And we've got Venkatesh, who's bought Suzlon Energy, and quite a large number, in fact, 6,150 shares at a cost price of 355. At least Venkatesh is in the green right now. What would you suggest that he do with this?
This tends to happen, Alex, and this is more of a reoccurring phenomena in the market that when the bull market gets into the most roaring of its phases, is where traders, they generally believe that even the penny stocks are the ones which can give you multiplying kind of returns, and that's where the fallacy of the market is, because that's where traders and investors, they tend to book a maximum amount of losses. There is a far more destruction of wealth which tends to happen once the correction seeps in. So I think many of these stocks which are penny and have been big underperformers since the last, I think, 5-7 years, are the ones which should not be looked at. In fact, corrections like these are the best times to try and chip into large cap names, because then the same quality stock which was available maybe at 10%, 15% or 20% at a premium just about a few weeks back, those stocks are available at significant discounts, and there is added more, there's more added safety, there's more cushion towards these large cap names, and they can try and absorb the major part of the market volatility as well. And we've seen that happening for the stocks not just in the last few weeks or months, but in fact the last year, when the bigger correction, the sell-off happened in the overall market, the large cap were the ones which managed to rally up higher. So I would suggest a switch from these names and go back into the quality blue chip names, the large cap ones, some of the names which I just enumerated some time ago.
Next query is coming from Rohan, and he wants views on South Indian Bank. Sharmila, how is this particular counter looking like? Makes sense if someone wants to enter into the stock at current market price?
I recommend anybody buying into South Indian Bank. I think there are far safer names to buy within the banking space. My advice would be to really go with the larger names. An ICICI Bank or a HDFC Bank is what I would recommend, but definitely I think you should avoid South Indian Bank.
We've got a question from Vivek Vandra, and I believe, so this is my interpretation of it, he's looking at Godrej Properties and he's asking whether to buy or not buy at this point. And since he's not measured his time frame, I'm going to go across to you, Kunal. Based on the charts, is it looking like it's an attractive price to buy at this juncture?
Alex, because there are 2 points to take note of. One of them is that the sector is a very high beta sector. We know that real estate stocks, they tend to perform in the thick of the interest rate sensitive environment where we are currently trading in. And the second part to look at is that whether Godrej Properties is a high beta stock within a high beta sector. So apparently, Godrej Properties, the structure of the charts, the way the prices tends to move up higher. You look at the last 13 months of rally, 13-14 months of rally as well for a stock like Godrej Properties, and it's not as if that the stock has gone through a straight vertical rally. There have been shorter periods of rally, a prolonged consolidation, and then a continuation to move on the upside. Now these are classical stocks trends which you look at, because these are stocks where trends are far more stable. I think in that aspect, given the high beta nature of the sector as well as the low beta nature of the stock, I would suggest that this could be a good stock to hold on to it from a longer term view. Also, this stock has been one of the best performers from the real estate pack in the last couple of years as well. So on that aspect as well, looks fairly attractive. But within a market which is into a corrective phase, I think a better approach is to stagger your buying and look to use dips to average it out further.
All right. The next query is coming from Abhishek Ray, and he wants to know about Wockhardt. He wants a short-term view on this particular counter, especially with the ET Now news break that we broke sometime last week. And the news break that actually Abhishek is talking about is the sources had told ET Now that Wockhardt is in advanced stages of discussion for tie-up for COVID-19 drugs. It's in talk with Sputnik V as well. So to take this forward, I'll come to you, Sharmila. More than short-term view, you can give us a short-term view on Wockhardt, but also on longer term, how does actually Wockhardt look like?
Looking quite decent at this price in terms of valuations, and I think if you take into consideration the fact that their last quarter earnings were also decent, that makes it a sort of a gives me slightly more confidence to say that you can continue to hold the stock. But of course, I think this is not a short-term view because all the developments that you are talking of, those are expected to pan out over the next 4 or 5 months, and after that you will really see anything translate into gains in terms of the numbers. So you need to increase your time frame, but given the price the stock is trading at and the fact that it's delivering decent numbers, this is a stock you can continue to hold.
Okay, I think that this is a question from Satyanarayana, which will benefit quite a few of the viewers that are tuning in. And Satyanarayana bought Adani Power at levels of 161, and he's been trying to exit, but since the stock is stuck in lower circuit even today, he's not able to do so. Kunal, what should someone do in this situation?
Well, yeah, I think there are a lot many strategies which one can do from the FNO side. Frankly, for the FNO stocks, but I believe Adani Power is not on the FNO side, so it becomes very tricky because when stocks are into a lower circuit on the cash side, it becomes a bit tricky to try and exit them. But then there is no other option than to wait for the circuits to open up. For these stocks to try and exit the stock, and that generally happens when an extreme amount of pain is actually out of the stock. So it's very difficult to anticipate that when would the lower circuit filter would probably open up for Adani Power or many of these Adani Group of stocks. But then you have to typically wait for the circuits to open up, and I think that's a very painful process which an investor has to go through.
Next query is from Sunil Varghese on Himadri Specialty Chemicals. I'm guessing that he has some of the stock in his portfolio. He wants to know whether it makes sense to average or continue to hold or go ahead and sell the stock. Kunal, what's your take on Himadri Specialty Chemicals? We saw a sharp price action yesterday, and then therefore we had a clarification coming from the company as well that they are not in talks with Tesla, because that sort of a news was market speculation. That sort of a news was actually floating in the market. So how does Himadri Specialty looks on the charts? Make sense to continue to hold on if you have a position, or does it make sense to buy if you're looking to buy new?
I think it's better to try and exit the stock, at current levels of 55, 56. And I think it's better again to try and buy the stock back when it comes back to those major support zones of 40, 45. I think that could be a much more better trade. The stock, even if the last 2-3 days have been quite fruitful for the stock in terms of news flows, volumes, and then maybe some bit of price movement as well. But when you look at it in majority on the entirety of the last 8-9 months from the September high, so September 2020, the stock was at 60 levels. Yesterday, the stock made a high of 60 yet again. So after a painful process of consolidation, it's come back towards a resistance point. So and that too at a time when the markets are taking a bit of a backseat. So that's a typical scenario where you generally see retracement into these kind of names. So I would advise that a better entry point for such stocks could be at the lower end of the support levels. 40-45 is the support for Himadri Specialty Chemicals.
Okay, Kunal, Sharmila, I'm going to request you to give just slightly shorter answers because the questions are piling up. I'm going to come to you on this next one, Sharmila, and I think that we've taken this in the recent past as well. We've got Mr. Bhatia who is asking about GIC RE, which he's bought at IPO level. Should he hold on?
GIC RE. Is that the stock?
Yes.
Yes, I think you can continue to hold on to the stock. I'm not terribly sort of positive on the stock, but I think at current levels it makes sense to hold on.
All right, the next question is from Avinash, and he wants to know whether he should look at buying PNB at current price levels for the medium term. Kunal, what's your take on PNB?
Out of the PSU stocks, of course, SBI is one of the strongest name, but PNB, Bank of Baroda, they were also emerging out to be stronger candidates for a continuation rally on the upside. For PNB, the stock after rallying from 45 is corrected back towards sub 40 levels. I think you can start buying at current levels, but I would sense that maybe the second leg of correction could take the stock back towards 30-35 zone. That could be a stronger support territory for a stock like PNB. So you can start nibbling at current levels, but I believe closer to 30-35 is where I believe the second leg of buying could probably be taking place for the stock.
Okay, at what level should you buy BPCL is a question coming in from Peyton Picard. And really, so there are so many aspects on the fundamental side, but I think technically, if Kunal, you can give a little advice here.
Much better way to trade stocks like BPCL is to wait for the breakouts to happen. Frankly, these are the kind of stocks which can tend to come back to their resistance points time and again, and then retrace from those levels. And those resistance or the attempt towards resistances actually turn out to be a bit more whipsawed. So I think purely on that aspect, I would suggest to wait on BPCL and buy only if the stock trades above that 500 mark. And remember, I think the recent rally for many of these OMCs was on the back of the steep rally in crude prices as well. So if crude starts to correct, say over the near term, there is a possibility that stocks like BPCL, IOC, etc. as well, they could also go in for some sort of a short-term correction. So I would advise to try and wait for the resistance to be taken out close to 500 to enter BPCL.
Email query that we've got from Shekhar Kadam. He's saying that he's bought NBCC stock. He has a quantity of 1001, which he's purchased at 41 rupees per share. He wants to know what to do with this particular counter. Sharmila, I'll come to you with this question because we also had Rajat also ask about NBCC. How does this counter look fundamentally? Those who have their positions in this, should they actually stay put?
I think yes, you can stay put because I think what we need to do is really to understand what's happening with the stock is to retrace a little bit. And a couple of years back, they had to sort of undertake a lot of projects, which this being a government arm, they had to undertake some projects where buyers were stuck and builders could not deliver, etc. I think the good news is that what the recent news flow has been that they've been able to sell some units at Amrapali. So the situation seems to be something that is improving for NBCC. And again, I think the current situation that we are in, you are going to see some amount of spending because, that would be one of the tried and tested ways to sort of bring the economy back is for government to spend and put money in sort of infrastructure projects where NBCC would get orders. So yes, I think at current levels, you can stay put in NBCC.
I'm going to try and combine a couple of questions, though they're not related, Sharmila. One is on HFCL. Would you buy into this counter? And the second is Clarent Chem and UPL. Would you get into these two counters or any one of them for 1 or 1.5 years?
Definitely no. I think the other stock you mentioned was UPL. Is that right? So that I think is definitely a stock that you can look at given the way the entire fertilizer space is and the way they are positioned globally, etc. So UPL is a stock that I liked, and I think the third stock you mentioned was Clarent Chem. That also seems fairly reasonable actually at current price. So that again is a stock that you can continue to hold.
All right. With that, we are at the end of our query segment. But Kunal, what's your high risk and low risk idea for our viewers today?
So, Cheryl, in this kind of a market, it's very important to have many low risk trades. So, I'm suggesting a couple of buy calls. In fact, one buy and one sell. The first one which I'm suggesting is from the defensive pack. It's about HUL or Hindustan Unilever. The stock is confirming a short-term breakout, and as I said, that in the market gets a bit more volatile, it's prudent enough to have more participation towards the defensive stocks. So picked up a HUL from the FMCG pack. Buy with a target of 2,500. Stop loss could be kept at 2390 mark. And the second would be a sell on M&M after a bit of a consolidation above its 50-day moving average. Today the stock seems to have broken below the critical support level. So M&M is what I would recommend as a sell. Targets to be kept at 750 and stop loss at around 800 mark.
All right, Sharmila, what are your picks for the viewers?
Well, I'm going with both low risk ideas because my sense is that, given the Fed, what the Fed has done in this week, it's time to be a little cautious because you need to see how FIs are really reacting to this development that, this Fed has sort of indicated that they could start a taper sooner rather than later, though there is obviously nothing affecting liquidity now. So, the FI number is something that you need to watch. And so I would really recommend people to be a little cautious at this point in time. So both are low risk ideas. Both ideas I like, and I think definitely you can try and buy them on dips. The first is HCL Tech. I think I've said enough number of times that IT is a sector that I like, and within the IT space, HCL Tech, given its valuations, given the way the verticals are poised, this is the stock I continue to like. And another stock is a stock from the pharma space, which is Gland Pharma. They have a very different model. They are, they don't have, the standard US FDA concerns, etc. Once again, I think if you get a good correction on the stock or the entire market is correcting, so if you, given the fact that the stock has rallied a lot, you could try and buy this on dips. But both these are good stocks to buy, and they're both my low risk ideas to buy for the longer term.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, we have addressed at least about 25 stocks over the course of the last 20 minutes or so, and it's humanly impossible to take any more than that. And hopefully the stocks that we have discussed are beneficial to all of those who have tuned in on social media. If we've missed your query, apologies for that, but we'll try and take it when we come back on Monday. On that note, let me thank both our experts. Thank you so much, Kunal, as well as Sharmila, for joining in and for taking all the queries that you did answer. You've been a tremendous help to us and everybody tuning in. Have a lovely weekend. We're slipping into a short break, but more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Co-powered by LG Air Conditioners, all in one, one in all.
When you are